Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and thank you for joining me in today's upload. Before we get into the upload, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss any content, click that bell icon. Also, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and they do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? All right, guys, before we jump into today's upload, just something really quick. Periodically, I get a gift sent from one of you guys, and I like to share them on the channel as a token of my appreciation. I get some really awesome gifts. I've gotten some hand-carved hiking sticks, a handmade tomahawk with flint arrowheads, knives, and just recently I got a Benchmade knife. I got a sign, Dogman Research Area, a couple stickers and stuff. Just really cool tokens of your appreciation of me, I guess. I mean, it just never ceases to amaze me. Last Saturday during a live stream, I had a subscriber reach out to me, and apparently he had he watches, I guess, a lot of these channels like mine, and he had constructed a knife for another channel. And he said, you know, I really like your channel, but I made this knife for this channel. And I sent him an email. I was excited. And this guy never responded to me. And I'm like, you know, and he's got a lot of subs, but I mean, I've got probably a sixth of his subs. But I told my daughter today, no matter how many subscribers I get, I will try to at least respond with a sentence. I do. And subscribers who send me things, I save their emails in a important box on my email. Well, anyway, a subscriber, we're not going to use his last name, but Jesse had constructed this beautiful knife for another channel and said, I'd like to give it to you. And I said, dude, I am appalled that this person didn't reach back out to you, and I apologize, but I'll take it. And look at the craftsmanship on Bigfoot's head. That's carved. Beautiful little knife. Look kind of phallic that way, but but anyway, I mean, the craftsmanship alone on that, it's amazing. It truly is. Came with a leather sheath, and I mean, how cool is that? And the steel is from, I believe, Sweden. Yeah. So it's pretty sharp. I like the blue with it appears to be like a brass or a rose gold kind of. Just a sick gift. Jesse, thank you. I truly appreciate it. I mean, even though it was for another channel, I'm the one who makes out. So thank you, Jesse. And this will go right here with all the other cool stuff that I've got on my stand, let's get into today's upload. Today's first part of the upload is a subscriber submitted experience. Jeff, I've been subscribed for a while now, and I enjoy the show. I live in central Alabama, southern Coleman County, and I know someone who owns property in Shelby County, just south of Birmingham, who told me she had a Dogman encounter on her property one afternoon. According to her, she was at her property marking the property lines late one afternoon. She was at the far corner of her property, cementing a post into the ground. The sun was low in the horizon. It was getting late, so she decided to cut across the property at an angle to save time on her way back to her vehicle. As she approached the somewhat middle of the property, she found what she originally thought was a deer trail. The trail went into a small pine thicket where it opened up into a cleared out area. The area had broken branches off the trees and all the ground cover and pine straw piled up in what looked like some kind of den with a large opening. She could tell something large had been bedding down here. The light of the day was fading fast and she began to feel very uncomfortable. Normally, she would have had her 2 large dogs with her, but they were not with her on this particular day, so she felt unusually vulnerable. As darkness descended, she began to hear noises in the brush that seemed to be following her. She hurriedly moved out of the area towards her parked front-wheel drive Honda Pilot. She described having a feeling of utmost dread, fear, and she couldn't get to her car fast enough. Getting back to her vehicle, it was almost completely dark. She hurriedly stowed the items and jumped in her vehicle to leave. Just as the vehicle started up, she saw a large Dogman step from the brush on all fours. The Dogman stared her down as she put her car into gear. The car was parked sideways on a hill, and she turned nose down toward the incline, shined the car lights on the Dogman. It stood upright and ran behind a large tree. She described the hands as claws, and they were huge. Stunned at what she was seeing, she quickly put the car in reverse. She said the car acted like it was going to get stuck. She was almost at the point of panic when the car finally jolted free. The Dogman was peeking out from behind this large tree while she backed up to turn her car around. She said that it was absolutely huge. Terrified, she drove as fast as possible out into the main road. She said it shook her enough to where she won't go back to that property at night. When I first came across the Dogman phenomena, I thought that it may be just a one-off thing up in the backwoods of Michigan or some other remote, faraway place. To think these creatures are coming right to the outskirts of civilization, sometimes even inside of towns or cities, is absolutely mind-blowing. They obviously have no fear of humans. The encounter described above was in Shelby County, Alabama, which borders Jefferson County, the largest population in the state. I had a number of very strange experiences in the mid-2000s in West Blount County, just north of Jefferson County, and just south of Coleman County. At the time, I had no idea the behaviors of cryptid creatures or that there were even such thing in my area. I have since come to believe that at least the very least, I had a group of juvenile Sasquatches loitering around the back of the property for a period of time. I never saw anything but heard lots of weird noises. During that time, we had the almost constant owl call going on, sometimes multiple owls screaming in the woods that sounded like a woman being brutalized or something. Then one night, at about 10 p.m., I heard a deep, deep growl in the woods. A large cat is what I was told it must have been, but it was loud and deep, and it did not sound friendly at all. We also had a CD player mounted under the cabinet in the kitchen, and this dang thing went off on 2 different occasions, making all sorts of screeches and loud static. But that dang thing was turned off. Nonetheless, it was making a lot of noise. One night, while working late, I had something large crawl under my office floor and was bumping the bottom of the floor. Later, my daughter said something was walking around on the roof of the office late one night. The kicker was when my kids told me one day about seeing monkeys in the woods and up in the trees behind the office/shop. All of it seemed utterly bizarre at the time. It took me a good 10 plus years to start piecing everything together. I have since moved away from the property, but the new property came with its own set of unusual happenings. Our new home, is located less than a mile from a Sasquatch sighting almost 10 years ago, where a whitish gray Sasquatch was seen running across the field on all fours. It leapt over a fence, stood up, and ran away bipedally into the woods. This was not reported to anyone in particular. My wife works as a beautician, and one of her clients told her the experience after finding out where we live. The experience makes me wonder about a few weird things that happened right after we moved in. The place we bought has 41 acres and a home that had not been lived in for about 4 or 5 years. Right off the bat, something or someone was opening the pasture gate late at night, letting the donkeys out. We decided to explore the property to see if the fences were down anywhere or what was going on in the backside of the property. My daughter said she saw a cleared out place in a private thicket, which donkeys could do, however. She also said that she saw torn clothing, candy wrappers, obviously not from donkeys. A couple weeks later, I went to investigate for myself, and the torn clothing and candy wrappers were gone. I did find some strewn bones and what appeared to be a skull of a small cow. One day, right as it started to get dark, something threw a large rock at the house and dented the siding right outside of my wife and my bedroom window. Again, I never saw anything, but did hear weird growling one night as a group of coyotes came through, screeching and howling as they normally do. And another night heard what sounded like the Ohio Bigfoot howl way off in the distance. What this was, I can only speculate. I know you probably get this kind of question all the time, so let me apologize if it is redundant. I was wondering if you have any information about my part of Alabama in specific. Huntsville, Blount County. Perhaps encounters that the person doesn't want to be on the podcast or doesn't want to be public. I'm wanting to accumulate as many sightings as possible on any of these creatures to see if a pattern emerges. I don't know of anyone in my immediate area who has had a Dogman encounter, but after listening to hundreds of accounts, I have noticed a pattern where Dogman and Sasquatch encounters seem to overlap any given area. I do know of at least 3 Sasquatch encounters in my local area, 2 of which I know people personally. One as recent as a few months ago and approximately 10 miles away. Just curious if you ever get a chance to speak to anyone to share this information with. Well, I have taken enough of your time. I'm sure you have better things to do than listen to me ramble. Thanks for all you do. I think it's critical that everyone knows these creatures are out there and how close they could possibly be living to human beings. Have a blessed day. Keep up the good work. So, I don't have my file of, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat, of Alabama encounters with me right now, but I don't think I do have any Huntsville or Blount County. They don't strike me as something. I'd remember the county if I heard it. That owl kind of screech that he had talked about, I'll never forget this experience. I'll have to remember the state that it was in. and I'll share it in a few minutes when I remember. But anyway, this gentleman reached out to me, and I talked to him on the phone for like 3 hours. And I really wanted to get him to come on the show and share. He initially said he was going to. And it was just 3 hours of listening to his experiences. And I was like, listen, please, like, I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to create like a relationship here, you know, where you are comfortable in sharing your experiences, but you're obviously comfortable now. Let's get these experiences out so people can hear them. And it was, you know, by the time he got done sharing everything, it was too late for him, not me. I would have sat another 3 hours to get it. And just the strangest stuff. And then he just decided that he didn't want to share, that he had, I don't know, but he had talked about, he called these Sasquatch owl men. And I thought that was very interesting because he said he knew when they were hunting, and they would hunt deer or hog in his location, and they would hoot like owls through his woods. So he knew exactly when they were hunting. Across the way, he had some dogmen, or not some, one dogman that was harassing his property, so much so that he built a 10 to 12 foot stockade fence around his property and put spotlights up in his backyard so they were facing out into his backyard so he could see what was going on. Just a really crazy set of events. And I'll never forget how he called. You know, it's just, you hear something, no matter how many people I've spoken to, and I've at least spoken to 200 people, but you hear that one thing from someone in particular. It doesn't matter who it is, but one thing out of every encounter sticks in my head. And for his, it was the owl men. Because at first he didn't explain, and I'm sitting here like on the edge of my seat going, wait a second, you know, Owlman? Is he talking like Mothman, like what's being seen in Chicago? What? And then bam, he lets it out, and I'm like, whoa, you know, really just blew my mind, you know. And then you could hear the fear as he was talking about this stockade fence. And he didn't build that for the Squatch. He built that for the Dogman because it was messing with him so bad, and I felt so bad for him. Anyway. All right, guys, like I said, I'd remember where it was. It was a township called Magnolia, Indiana. And that's where that gentleman's experiences all occurred. I remember that night having his land, his home, pulled up on Google Maps, looking at, and I was blown away because I could clearly see the fence. Let's get into tonight's second part of the upload. Hey Jeff, I know you're super busy. I'm not that busy. I always have time for you guys. A rancher I spoke with about his fence being damaged, he told me a story about how he had went to the border to buy some cattle or goat. The rancher's friend, Willie, of his lived near the border. Willie was selling his cattle, goats, chickens because someone or something was killing them. This rancher, Willie, thought it was illegals crossing, hungry, stealing them. Rick and 3 ranch hand Latinos drove a trailer to pick up the animals. They were super late because he was lost, way past time. He was told they would be there before dusk. As he got to this ranch, he could see about 20 guys who looked armed, but trying to hide their rifles behind an older Jeep. Then an old man came and screamed at Rick, "Y'all need to grab as many animals as you can now while we are here. We will work out a price in the daylight when it's safer." This rancher said, "Rick, I mean it now, brother. Now we will help you load them. Keep the illegals or wolves off your ass while you do so." They ran to the pens and started whistling, shushing all their hand hats, the cattle, to the trailer. He thought it was so strange. They were seriously about a dozen fellows on point. He felt safer than the president, but had an uneasy feeling that maybe it was a cartel or a giant, as he laughed. 6 cows, prize winning, for sure. 8 goats, super thin, nervous, and 6 chicken, odd. There were feathers everywhere about the whole farm. One of Rick's helpers, Jose, got to talking to the biggest Mexican he had ever seen guarding the back gate. Jose ran over to Rick and said, "We need to leave. This is a creature, a dog from hell." Rick asked, "What do you mean?" Juan, Jose, and Rene, Rick's helpers, all said they wanted to leave. They did just that. The next day, they decided to meet at a town over. Rick said the fellows did not sleep that night. They sat inside trucks talking. Willie shows up with another older gentleman. They start to tell Rick about attacks, enclosing cattle, goats, and chickens all together in a barn, then finding body parts scattered nearby his property behind the back gate, as if something was eating humans but doing it, leaving part of the gate or waiting for cattle. Willie said a year earlier he had found kids, 4, 10 to 13, on his property hiding inside a barn with the cattle. They had poured pee and poo all over them. Said that a large Mexican nicknamed the Guardian because kids told him what they saw. A woman crossing with them was attacked by a wolf on 2 legs. She screamed over and over at the kids to run and hide in the barn and to cover their body odor with gas or whatever they could. The Guardian said they were telling the truth and he could see it in their faces. Willie then said a man had the same thing. They called the Border Patrol, but they had refused to come into the ranch. They had some breakfast and drove back to Copeland. When he opened the trailer, he said the cattle were quiet, goats as well, no chickens in sight. Only a small wolf pup was lying there, obviously eating the chickens. Rick took pity on the pup, placed him in his farm for about 6 months until one day the pup was huge and Rick, feeling he had done too much damage, decided to shoot him. He did just shoot him once. It lied there bleeding. Then they put his body, now weighing 100+ pounds, in a hole. A few days later, Rick decided he was sorry and would put a marker or a wooden headstone where the pup was buried. Yep, the pup's body was gone, and Rick thought it was scavengers that had dug him up. He tried to report it to someone, but no one would listen. Then I showed up asking about damage to his fence and told me about what I saw and what happened to me. He started to apologize and said, holding my hands, that he was sorry. He didn't shoot it in the head. He started to cough. I knew he was done talking to me and my cop friend. We got into my truck and didn't say a word. As always, I dropped him off a ways from the restaurant in Elgin. I have not been able to get a hold of my friend since. I heard the rancher has lung cancer. Jose has called us because Rick, the rancher, has something for me and my buddy. As far as I know, My buddy has never gone back to get his gift. I got this experience the next day after I sent him your video on the Border Patrol that had called you. I sat with him for what felt like hours, just listening, not speaking. Hugged him goodbye when finished. He told me to send it to you ASAP to let you know he was saddened by these events. How the heck did that Dogman pup, because that's what it was, get on the trailer with all those men around? That's how sneaky they are. That's why I really say, be vigilant when you're in the woods. I don't believe that, every time you go in the woods, there's something watching you. But I do believe that 4 to 5 times out of 10, when you do go in the woods, there is something watching you. That's my belief. Look when I went up to Tom Mezek, where he had disappeared multiple times. I've had great days, and I've had really bad days. The other day was a really bad day. That quietness was so eerie. Man, I watched that video again. And just at the end, and then, that one part where I'm walking out and my mic starts acting funny is because the raindrops were hitting it. That place is bad. I really do think it's got something there, and I don't believe that it's a Dogman. I really think there's a portal, and I do believe that something came out of that portal and took Tom Mezek to wherever it went. I'm getting off topic, but just, it's crazy. And to go there and have days that, the strangest thing is the trees, how they're bent. And that's, just, I went from being vigilant, hyper vigilant about watching about this Dogman pup to this. That's how my brain, this is all I think about. 6 years ago, I thought about the paranormal very, here and there. When I start this channel and share my encounter and start talking about other things that has happened to me, and now this is all my brain thinks about. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Tonight's third experience is another subscriber submitted encounter. She had previously shared a encounter as well. Hi Jeff, how are you? This encounter takes place in eastern Kentucky, Appalachian Mountains. As I wrote previously, I lived in a home in a place called Elkhorn Creek, in a bottom called Lower Pigeon. It just means that our house sat in a low spot below a road, very close to a creek, in the bottom of a holler. The creek sat no further than 6 feet from our house, in some rooms, and probably no further than 15 feet below the bank. Unfortunately, that means that flooding was a real problem. And with the recent flooding in Kentucky, that house was seriously impacted. I say that to say that on this left side of the creek, but on the right was a rather large side yard that ran to the road. It's a narrow 2-lane road which contains what we call kiss your butt curves, due to the fact that if you miss a curve, you might as well kiss your butt goodbye because you are either going into the creek or into a mountainside. The cliffside of the mountain runs straight up a couple hundred feet. On the other side of the road, full of trees, rocks, overhangs, and snakes. Lots of snakes. Well, one night, I decided that I was going to talk with a friend via phone call and enjoy some night air for a bit. It was June, hot, sultry, and sticky Kentucky air. Our air in the summer will stick to you like a second skin in a humid summer. Well, as I was busy confessing my undying devotion to a gawky, pimple-faced teenage boy on the other line who I'm sure thought I was madly in love with for umpteenth time, I was shining a mag light around. I was casually shining on the mountainside across the road from my side yard, maybe 30 feet away, 40 at max. I was catching some small glints here and there, just walking around the yard, shining it in a sweeping motion side to side without really registering it. I caught a glint of something flash as I swept to the right. Apparently, something about it must have jarred my attention because I remember stopping abruptly and thinking something was unkempt about it. So I swept back over where I thought the spot was near. And again, I caught it. Eye shine. It's no surprise to see eyeballs eyeballing you at night. They're due to all the critters. But this was odd. It was not the usual green shine, which I was normally catching on a regular, but a yellowish light reflecting from eyes way too far apart to be a raccoon, fox, or possum. When I landed on it again, it started to walk closer to the edge of the road. I saw the eyes disappear behind something, and within the same moment, there was a huge cracking sound. It sounded like limbs breaking when ice gets too heavy and snaps them in half. And then a loud swish sound as a good-sized tree came literally crashing from the hillside and fell across the road. Something had broken an entire tree and pushed it over, feet from where I was standing. Something had broken that tree, and it wasn't that huge, but it wasn't that small. And I could see green leaves as it lay across the road. Needless to say, I turned tail and made a hasty retreat back inside. My uncle told me 2 men had to work together the next morning to move that tree off that road. Anyway, there's one of my encounters. If you'd like to use it, feel free. I appreciate the time and your hard work. Mad respect. Stuff. Wow. So, 3 subscribers submitted experiences. We talk about another subscriber, so 4 technically. Real good evening. I got a couple other things that I want to do though. And one is I'd like to talk about the case out of Oregon. I've been keeping up on it and no new news. Get that. For those of you who are not familiar with the case, I will quickly share some info with you. Also, in the description below, there will be a link to the photos because they're possibly graphic. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's get into that. All right, for those of you who have not seen these photos, I will post a link in the description below. I will also make a pinned comment. Pinned comment is just the first comment in the comment section. You have to literally click in the comments, and if you're below the pinned, just scroll up. So needless to say, I've been following this case. I actually reached out to him via Facebook, sent him some links, a couple links to my audiobooks, and he did bite. He took advantage of the links and read the books or listened to the books, but never reached back out to me. So maybe someday. Anyway, an Oregon man said he was attacked by a wolf. Officials say it was a dog. This is April 21st. This case happened on the 9th of April. An Oregon man was moral hunting more mushroom hunting, and it turned into a bloody disaster on April 9th, when the Gold Hill resident was attacked by what he called the biggest wolf he had ever seen. But DNA testing conducted on Josh Trotman's shirt and his mushroom bucket confirmed he was actually attacked by a male domestic dog. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife reports in April 20th press release. So he was, he was hunting for morel mushrooms with his son, his nephew, his brother-in-law, pretty far up away from his family, just thinking about a steak and some onions and these mushrooms just smothered. And all of a sudden, he sees this monstrous creature come out of the woods and attack him. He's not a small guy, not a big guy, 200 pounds, maybe 5'10", 5'11", somewhere around there. It's in the, I'm just going off the top. I could go deep into it, but I won't. Fought for his life. Just fought. Almost didn't make it. And the creature took off. Well, you know, there's a lot going about this because he was then taken to the hospital. Hospitals are mandatory reporting. As many of you know, they have to they're mandated to report incidences like this. And they didn't. And supposedly, Department of Fish and Game found out about the attack on his Facebook page. Because we all know that the Department of Fish and Game are all over Facebook. So then there's a couple lies right there by the government. And when I say government, I could be referring to local, county, state, federal, yada, yada. They're all the same to me. They're just, there are a lot of good people that work in those fields, but there are not a lot of good people either. So anyway, they find out about the case on Facebook, and then supposedly they're not allowed on his property because this guy's saying, you can't come on my property. Now, I did look, and if there is a attack and the public is at risk, they don't need permission. So initially, he's saying it was a wolf prior to the DNA test, and he's then, saying, you can't come on my property. No, that's not how it works. I called 5 different states and asked. And finally, the last one that I called, which was Washington State, said every state works with federal Fish and Game, and if there's an incident where the public is at risk, we do not have to ask permission. We can just go. State police was even involved. That's another thing that set me off. I was like, huh? So anyway, then he says here's my shirt, here's the bucket. I don't know how the bucket was full of his blood. Now, he never mentioned the animal bleeding, so I don't know how or what DNA they got. Maybe saliva, couple hairs with follicles, and so another thing that I did ask, I said, well, let's say somebody lies. Do they get in trouble, and are they fined for a DNA test? DNA tests are not that expensive. I paid roughly $500 and something for the DNA tests that I had done. And you can go online and look. DNA tests are tops $1,000. Even during special circumstances, it's pretty And usually if someone does lie, they fine that person to reimburse that cost. Which they didn't mention that either, So I found that kind of interesting. And I truly, truly believe that the man was savagely attacked by a dogman. He said it was the largest wolf he had ever seen with the goldest colored eyes. Anyway, that's some updated info on that. There isn't any. Which, when these kind of cases just fade out, to me, that means something's up. They also mentioned a pot field. They always, if there's something going on weird, they always got to mention abuse of drugs and this and that. And, so this DNA lab test said it was a dog, a male dog, and, it's funny, because I did a little looking into that a little bit more. And even if it was, human on human DNA, me wanting to find this DNA of whoever, it's like $1,000 tops, but he's never find. So, and mine, I was lucky because I had a friend who is a veterinarian, and we sent 3 samples out, and it was $500, which I paid for out of pocket. But I got information back that I wanted to get back, and found it pretty interesting. So, anyway, I guess no news is cover-up news. So let's, with that, call it an evening. And yeah, I don't know. The links will be in the description below. And if you can't find them, just go into the comment section and there'll be a pinned comment to see these photos. With that, everyone, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Once again, Jesse, thank you for this awesome, truly amazing. Look at the craftsmanship on that. I don't know if you guys can, but thank you. I really appreciate it. And I am blessed. I really am. With that, guys, this channel would be nothing without you. You guys are the glue that holds it together. So stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life. God bless. Whatever you want to say. I say both now because I've always been Catholic, but I do have strong Native American blood in me, carded. And but I've always believed in the Trinity as well. So I just I'm going to start saying, God bless, or the Great Spirit thing, whichever strikes my fancy. And it's not to kind of just appease people, it's just how I feel, See you later.